Now, in the midst of the global coronavirus pandemic, academic work has migrated online as schools remain closed indefinitely. But not all families have access to electricity, TV, phones, and computer to keep up with virtual learning, especially people in rural Ghana. At the Western Regional town of Banso, final junior high and senior high school students are worried that they may fail their final exams as they cannot access learning online. Joy News' Henry Kwesibedu has the rest of the story.
The world is almost at a standstill following the outbreak of the dreaded coronavirus. Education has been badly affected too. With schools in Ghana now closed indefinitely, lessons have been moved online. Studying online is now the new normal in many urban and middle-class homes in Ghana. But the situation is different in many rural communities where access to electricity and internet remain a struggle. Virtual learning in these communities is not feasible. Banso, a community which is some 30 kilometers away from Western Region capital, is no exception. Many children loiter freely without any care. They said they have no idea that school continues online. Some JHS 3 students sit together, engaging in group discussions. They are worried that basic education certificate examinations may start immediately school resumes.
Sometimes you don't even know what to learn because the textbook have been a lot and you don't know even the subject or the topic, the actual topic you have to go for.
That's 15-year-old Anita Kwam, a BECE candidate. She has been home for the past month helping her mother to operate a local eatery in the community. With no access to internet, she is worried her performance in the upcoming exams would suffer.
We are even scared because we have not done with our syllabus, and sometimes we have to struggle because we are going to write a BECE with the cities, those in the cities that have access to the internet. And because we in the village, we don't have those access to the internet, so it makes our learning very difficult. And we pray that this disaster should come to an end before the day of our BECE comes.
Al Hassan, senior high school 3 student, is worried. He tells me it is a real struggle learning on his own as some topics need further explanation and direction from tutors. With no access to a television, phone and internet, he struggles to access online lessons.
It is very, very difficult for us to learn. Sometimes, especially the calculating subject, let's say the accounting, the costing, and the commat. You solve some question, you suffer, you try it continuous, you solve it and you are not getting the answers. Sometimes you have to get a teacher or someone who knows more than you to teach you. But look at our locality. If you look around, who are you going to consult? And some of us too, our background is not all that good. And I've heard that they are learning going on online and television. And I don't have television at the same time, I don't have phone. So like, it's very, very difficult for us to learn.
Al Hassan aspires to be a chartered accountant in the near future, but he is worried he may not pass the WASSCE if the current situation persists.
My goal or my aim is to become a chartered accountant. We are trying our possible best because this research is not easy. You take it to the whole Ghana, going to write the same paper and look at what I'm facing now. Some people are there learning, using their phone here and there. And it's not easy. We are all using the same certificate to enter the same universities. So someone there learning through social media, through television, and I'm here suffering. Sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Many students in rural communities want government to expand the online studies started by the Ministry of Education to community radio stations in the communities so they can catch up with their colleagues in urban Ghana.
The government have to extend the teaching and learning that is going on the television and online so that the FMs who are closer, so that you don't have the access to the television and the internet access. You can learn through it.
But Al-Hassan has a wish.
If somebody donates or somebody will able to provide me a phone or what do you call it, a television, I will be much, like, I'll be very happy.
If government fails to address concerns expressed by the students, inequalities on the education front would continue to widen. For Joy News, Henry Kwesi reports.
Well, we'll have a conversation on the back of this story. Joining us live now, Executive Director of Child Rights International, Bright Appiah, joining us via Zoom. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, good morning.
Great. You know, first of all, your thoughts on the plight of these children, particularly in Ahanta West municipality, who can't get online for education.
Well, it's unfortunate that they have to go through that, and I personally feel that this is just the one aspect or one community that is going through that, but there are a lot of communities that are also experiencing same in terms of they are having access to such facilities in order for them to also learn. And if you clearly look at statistics, about 40% of people who are in secondary school come from rural communities. So it means that you are cutting about 40% of people out of it if they don't have access to it. So it also shows how weak the planning process was in terms of even deciding that they want to use that the platform that they use in communicating, learning to children and all that. Then again, it also borders on data, availability of data for government to decide on which direction that it needs to go in terms of having an e-learning platform for children and all that. So these are basic things that for me did not work well, and it's putting some children at a disadvantaged position or making them more vulnerable.
Clearly, nobody prepared for this pandemic. We didn't know we would be here, even though some people already do the virtual learning. What options are available for these children?
Well, the options that should be available is so much dependent on availability of data and how the extent to which government want to go when reaching out to students. So, for instance, if you have decided on television, and you know that about the television will reach about 60% of people who are in secondary school or basic school, then that will be your target. And then also you need to also design app that would also reach about the 40% left in the rural communities. And if government is not in a position to do that, then we were expecting that government will rely heavily on the community communication system that they have or the community radio stations that they have in order to reach out to these children and all that. But this traditional system were not used in getting information to the children. So we are stick to the television, and that clearly shows that we've not done a comprehensive analysis on how to get to these children. For that matter, we think that just a mere fact that you would use television to do that, that is it. But there are also other TV stations that, in my work in the rural communities, catches their attention a lot, especially one of these local stations like Adum FM. Adum TV.
Adum TV, yes.
You go to the rural communities, they have access to it, UTV, they have access to it and all that. So government should not only rely on 8 state agencies in delivering some of these services, but also must have a partnership with the private sector to get information to these children, because, and this is so prominent when it comes to the showing of these soap opera films that they show, the Pragya and all that. I don't know the names properly, but it seems it's really catching up with children in the rural community. So if such a platform can provide some of these things and children can have access to some of these information, then the state must also be interested in using the private sector to communicate some of these things to the rural communities. By doing so, you limit yourself in terms of the number of people that you have to use app or other means to reach them. So the private sector engagement is very, very important. And then also development of certain apps that comes with a certain gadget that we can make available to these children so that they can also learn.
Speaking to the Ghana Education Service, when we get the understanding that, because things are still unfolding, they are still planning and having conversations and trying to catch up.
You see, that's where the issue is, because in any educational system, your preparedness is as equal as the product that you generate out of the system, and you should be ready for all kinds of emergencies, and this is one of them. And because of this COVID-19, I've done a lot of research in other countries, looking at how they are responding, especially their social response plans, as well as how they are responding to the educational system that they have. And clearly, one thing that stands out that nobody envisaged that a situation like this will cripple our educational system. So why is it that they were able to deal with it as if children are having a normal classroom work, whilst we at the other part of this world complain about the fact that we were not prepared? It means that something is wrong, and that what is wrong is how we respond to our social protection system. And if indeed we are so prepared, knowing that we are a welfare state for that matter, that must be integral part of the decision that we make, and there must also be integral part of the services that we provide, then we'll be able to meet some of these emergency issues that we find ourselves in. So for me, it's just an excuse to say that still we are in the planning process. Because if you have data and you know the number of children who are coming from the rural communities accessing secondary schools, and then you have data on the number of students that you have, and then the dynamics that associate with them, then you should be, this is not something that you have to plan. It's just a matter of invoking the strategies that will help you reach them. So the planning issue that you're talking about, for me, is a lack of information that is making them to speculate. It's just a mere speculation, but not a matter of their planning, because they don't have the information to even plan with. So
well, we've just been disconnected from that conversation, but also joining us via phone is Daniel Penny. He's Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Education Service in the Ahanta West Municipality. Good morning to you, Mr. Penny. Thanks for your time. I'm not sure if you watched the story, but we're telling the story of children in your community who don't have access to the internet and so cannot catch up with the virtual learning that's ongoing. Has that come to your attention?
Good morning, and thanks for having me. Yes, in the Ahanta West municipality, we have about 123 communities. Of course, there are some communities who have difficulty in terms of communicating and having access to the internet connectivity. But not having the internet connectivity should not, in actual way, prevent the children from having access to the e-learning, because the e-learning program that the Ministry of Education is doing together with the Ghana Education Service is in three forms. One is the GLTV program, which is being aired not only in GTV. You can have that one on DSTV, you can have that one on GoTV, you can have that one on Star Times. You can have that, even told by my public education I did last week on radio, I am told that even with the multi-TV decoder, when you rescan it, you can have access to it. So the internet connectivity model of the e-learning is only one aspect. It's only one aspect. It's only for those who want to go online to have access to
we do understand that, but are there other alternatives available today? Because there are other communities, that don't also have electricity, for instance, so you can't even talk about television.
Yeah, so the Ahanta West Directorate of Education, just as I said last week, we did some public education on the radio. We also appealed to some people who are around to also support this cause by the government, because even in our communities where people don't have access to internet connectivity, there are people who have access to this multi-TV, this Glo TV, this digital boxes I'm talking about. In some cases, we have even people who have DSTV, and during the English Premier League, they create a platform for people to go and watch the television. Those people were appealed to actually give access to our students for now, because when you go on DSTV channel 315, you have access so that the children can come there in the morning to come and go.
So if I understand clearly what you're saying, you're talking about a central point where the children can go and have access.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even that one, maybe there's a challenge with it, because if the children are even going there, we don't expect those children to be plenty, and the issue of social distancing will not be observed. That one is there. But even in our homes, in our communities, that is that. Putting that one aside, looking at the situation as it is now, we cannot say that we are bringing the children to a central point and give them lessons, because this is what we are all trying to prevent. So what we can do is the appeal and the collaboration with individuals and organizations within the municipality to help and give access to the children.
So what kind of supports? What kind of supports can individuals give?
Yeah, the kind of support can individual give is just as what I explained further. Even with the lesson which is being aired on television, I must be frank that there are some homes that you will go which they may not have access to this decoders I'm talking about. So if I am in a yard with you, you may have, I may not have. Just give an access to those who cannot have, to have access to the television so that they can also follow the lessons which is being aired on the television. This is the best way we can do, because as it stands now, we cannot bring children together and say that we are going to offer them a lesson. No, that one is it's not possible. Until there are new directives from our president calling us that this is that, or possibly we can go back. That's what we can do. This challenge you are telling me is not in isolation, because if you go across the country, in every area you have places where they don't have access to this internet connectivity. And let me even say this. The internet connectivity, the access to internet connectivity is only one aspect of the e-learning, because that is when, if you want to log on to www.icampusgh.com, that is when you want to actually use the internet connectivity. If you put that one aside, the television stations around the government have collaborated with some television stations, and I'm even glad to know that even on multi-TV, when you rescan it with the new ones, you will still have the GLTV on it to have access to the lessons.
Just before I let you go, I had a conversation with your colleague, Cassandra Chum Ampofo, who is in Accra, and she indicated that there are plans to migrate these lessons onto radio. Now, I want to ask specifically in your municipality, how helpful would this be?
Yes, that's why I said that it is three forms. We have the TV one, we have the radio one, and we have the online one. The radio one is what has not been started yet. And so when that one gets started, GBC is almost radio is across the nation. Even putting that one aside, if it becomes possible that some children in our community cannot access, we only have to link up with the local FM stations they can take it from GBC and it will go across our communities for all the children to have access to the radio lessons.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Daniel Pena. Let's go back onto Zoom because Bright Appiah is reconnected with us. Mr. Appiah, we lost you briefly there, but I bounced your idea of assessing, to shelve the BEC writing and use the continuous assessment onto the GS, and the PRO explained that the Ministry of Education had put together a team, and this idea was not totally off and that it was welcome. But can you explain this modality to us again, the use of the continuous assessment instead of writing the BECE?
Right. We looking at the situation that we find ourselves in, we were also looking at alternatives in terms of how those who supposed to write the BEC will be awarded certificate and then the WASSCE. And we realized that as part of awarding marks to students, continuous assessment plays a critical role. So you pick the BEC, for instance, 40% of the marks goes into determining the certification, and then for WASSCE, it is 30%. So if then they write the exams, then they run everything up to 100% so that they will determine what the student will get and all that. And looking at the situation that we find ourselves in, obviously it will be very difficult for us to assemble children that they should write their final exam to be able to add on to the continuous assessment for them to be awarded certificate. Also, we looked at various countries and what they are doing, and we realized that indeed one of the ways that they want to award certification to students has to do with the use of the continuous assessment. And even, for instance, if you pick the United States, for instance, they are not even talking about using the continuous assessment, but they are asking universities to rely on the continuous assessment to let students have access to education. UK did the same thing, and France even scrapped everything that concerned examination for now, which means that they are also going to rely on the continuous assessment. And in our case, the continuous assessment plays a critical role in determining the outcome of the certification. So now that we cannot write the exams, we are saying that government must consider using the continuous assessment as a means of awarding certification. And the question of credibility came in when we consulted some experts and all that, and trying to find out how we can do this. And our conclusion is that the main goal of education is long life learning. So if a child is able to do well with its continuous assessment, then that is where you can determine that the child is well prepared to face the reality of life outside the classroom and all that. So to depend on the continuous assessment is very, very important. And in doing that, we'd have to look at the predicted results of every single child for the past 3 years that the child has been in school, the homework that the child does, the classwork, even contribution in class. Then again, you look at the history of the school to be able to determine as to whether they deserve this particular mark. So for instance, in the WASSCE examinations, you realize that particular schools get certain results. So we are even saying that Ghana Education Service and WAEC must go back to look at the past 5 years history of every school to determine the number of people who pass exams every year in order to also set the standard for using the continuous assessment so that everybody will be covered. Again, we are also looking at the issue of equity because there are instances where some students may not be well during a terminal exam, so they may not have the opportunity to write the exams and all that, and that would also affect their continuous assessment. But there are schemes within the Ghana Education Service that also say that if a child is not feeling well and the child cannot write exams, there should be another alternative way of rewarding marks to the child and all that. So we are also looking at equity. And then equity also in the sense that there are certain schools that are located in certain rural communities that in terms of matching facilities, you cannot do that against other schools. So all these things must come to play to determine the kind of standard that we want to develop to ensure that all these students, when we use their continuous assessment, we will not cheat anybody or we will not disadvantage any child. And for us, if they put all these things together, and with the work that they've done so far, I think that we can have credibility for the usage of the continuous assessment for awarding certificate for the BEC and then the WASSCE.
Just finally, WAEC has suspended the conduct of the WASSCE for school candidates. Is it surprising that we don't have a decision on the BECE yet?
Yes, of course. Once they have suspended the exams, in Ghana, WAEC is a body that we have sanctioned by law to carry out examinations. So once they have not given room for us to do that, then it means that that cannot be done. But the responsibility of ensuring that our children have a continuous education lies in the hands of government. So we have to decide.
Well, apologies there. Looks like we lost Mr. Bright up here again, but I guess largely his submissions has been made. So let's still stay with the subject a while longer. The Ghana Education Service says it is working to move the online and TV learning programs onto some radio stations to enable some school children take advantage of the distance learning program that's currently ongoing. PRO of the service, Cassandra Chum Ampofu, told me earlier on the AM show the move is in response to complaints from students and pupils across the country about their inability to access the programs due to various factors.
Of course, we have even submitted a letter to multimedia to give us a time. But just like the story, showed as we also acknowledge that there are some who may not have television and access to internet, and that's the reason why we have also started discussions with some community radio stations so that at least they can have their radio. Even if you don't have electricity, you can have a radio that would probably use battery, or these days we have these solar radios. If you have one, you will be able to tune in and then listen. Yes, we acknowledge that, in fact, we never dreamt of this pandemic. It has just come to hit at us. And of course, we are all trying our very best to ensure that we take teaching and learning out there. But again, these are some of the challenges that are coming up, and management is really looking at it. But as I speak to you, we have gotten feedback from some local community stations, and we are very hopeful that very soon we would also migrate onto the radio online radio channel, so that we'll have our community people also getting access to teaching and learning. In the meantime, we have started with senior high school, and we'll soon add on the junior high school and then primary.
Okay, so that's Cassandra Chum Ampofu. She speaks for the Ghana Education Service, speaking earlier on the AM show.